My name is Ernie Wade. I'm an associate professor of economics here at Central Virginia Community College. I do teach the economics courses regularly, as well as corporate finance. And for the first time, I'm also teaching personal finance. And what I'm going to talk to you today is some skills that you would need to use daily by way of personal financial management. This is budgeting our money, and many of the principles that I'm going to talk about today concerning budgeting money can be applied to time management as well. It's like old Benjamin Franklin said, once upon a time, time is money. So much of what I'm going to say about money management can be extended to time management. Okay. Let me kind of open this up for discussion. I would prefer to talk with you rather than talk at you today. What is a budget? Hey, can anyone tell me what a budget is? How many of you maintain a budget? A financial budget? I think this is something that we should do regularly. I think this is a very, very important thing that we all need to do. When I think of a budget, a financial budget, what I'm really talking about is a spending plan. That's exactly what a budget is. It's a spending plan. That's going to be very essential when it comes to developing our short-term as well as our long-term financial plans. And I think planning is very, very important. As I say, not only in terms of how we use our money, but how we use our time. Okay? Well, why is that? I think developing a spending plan is going to be particularly important to you all as students, because if you are like me as a student, your financial resources are very limited. In fact, I was counting pennies when I was a student. I didn't really have a whole lot of pennies to go around to buy everything that I wanted, much less, to buy everything I wanted, much less what I needed. Right? So I think it's important to develop a spending plan in lieu of the fact that we have a limited income. And we need to stretch those dollars as far as we possibly can to support our daily needs. Now, if we did not live in a world of limitations, that is living in a world of plenty, we wouldn't have to be as concerned about plenty. But the fact of the matter is, we do live in this world of limitations. And therefore, it's going to be important for us to set priorities. And how we fulfill those priorities, we do so in terms of a spending plan. Well, I think a spending plan is going to facilitate our efforts to manage our money wisely. I know that all the monies that we earn on a job, we work hard for that money, and it's going to be very important that we make prudent decisions as to how we use that money to support day-by-day needs. Very important. And I think every one of us should strive to establish shorter-term as well as longer-term financial goals, and this can be facilitated by developing a regular budget plan. What do you think some of our short-term financial goals will include? Have you ever thought about goals in terms of how you spend your money, huh?
Like maybe buying a car.
Okay, yeah, some of our goals may involve saving money to buy a car, at least make a good down payment on a car. Those of you who use revolving lines of credit, like a credit card, you may have a credit card balance, like maybe a $300 or $400 balance that you want to get paid off very quickly, you're going to have to develop some plan to achieve that goal. Some of you may have aspirations of going on a really, really nice vacation next summer. You know it's going to cost a little bit of money to go. You have a pretty good idea how much it's going to cost, and you're going to have to develop some plan to put monies aside so you can pay for that vacation without going deeper and deeper in debt. Right? So those are some of our short-term goals. What about longer-term goals? I know some of these may be off your radar screen because you're so young. You may not be looking that far ahead, but what do you think some of our long-term goals would be?
Buying a house.
Could be buying a house, yeah. How do you save enough money each week, and maybe in 20 years you would have enough money to make a down payment? And given the financial situation that banks are in right now, banks are really requiring fairly sizable down payments. It's very hard to get a mortgage without a 20% down payment. And given the way houses are going these days in price, that's going to require a pretty good large sum of money. Well, those of you probably want to have families. You want to have children. You're going to want your children to go to college, to seize the academic opportunities that you're currently involved in. You may want to save for that, save for a future wedding, save for retirement. Your longer-term goal may have maybe $50,000 in some form of a savings account. How are you going to plan for that? Right? So yeah, I think a budget is going to facilitate your long-term and short-term financial plans, and that's the importance of it. There are times when we're going to have to set monies aside to support emergency spending. You know, we all have a rainy day. There's so much money that we spend that we did not anticipate. I had a fairly sizable car payment to make. Not a payment, but a payment for a car repair. It was around $600. And fortunately, I had enough money in savings where I could pay for that car repair without increasing my debt obligations. Right? I had to have a tooth crown, which ran about $800. And of course, these dentists wouldn't want to be paid on the spot. They say, you don't have to pay when the services are rendered. And fortunately, I had enough money set aside to pay for that dental bill at the time expected. So yes, I mean, we do encounter emergencies. Could be home repairs, could be most anything. But yeah, these are 4 good reasons why we need to devise or develop a spending plan. And as I say, if you're not currently engaged in this practice, I would encourage you to do so. Okay. Y'all have any questions about this matter? Okay, what I want to do is I want to kind of give you a brief overview of the financial budgeting process. And then I want to follow this up with an example. Okay? And this is fairly straightforward. It's a 4-step process. And you have to be engaged in all 4 stages. The first stage is assessing your current financial situation. This is going to involve knowing how much income you currently receive periodically, maybe on a weekly basis or monthly basis. And that income assessment should be one that's fairly certain, not something that you would hope for, but what you know is fairly certain. A lot of this is based on your current living situation too, whether you're married, whether you're single, whether you own your own home, whether you are renting an apartment, whether you own your own car, whether you're renting a car, your current living situation. You're going to have to identify what financial obligations are fixed that you actually have to commit month by month, week by week. And by the way, those are obligations that you may have very little control over. You're going to have to identify those particular aspects of your spending. You're also going to have to identify the financial obligations that you have more control over, that you can alter fairly regularly as you manage your money. Right? Well, the second phase is actually planning your financial direction. And this involves setting your financial goals. I think one financial goal that is really, truly non-negotiable is setting aside a certain amount of your earnings towards savings. Saving part of your disposable income. I would say a good guideline is to save, if you can, save at least 10% of your paycheck, week by week, month by month. I would say that we all work very hard for our money. I know I work hard for my money. I know Connie works very hard for her money. And I know you all will work hard for your money. And because you work so hard for your money, I think it's going to be very, very important for you to pay yourself first before you pay anyone else. You work hard for your money, and I think you are very deserving of at least 10% of the money that you earn and take home. You need to pay yourself first, right? Because if you don't, in my opinion, you're cheating yourself. You need to pay yourself first, right? Well, once you decide on how much you're going to pay yourself first, I think it's about 10%. I'd like to think it'd be about 10%. If it's 20% or 30%, that's all the better. But after you decide how much you're going to pay yourself, then you want to figure out how you're going to appropriate the remaining part of your disposable income. Right? Particularly when it comes to those financial obligations that you have a fair amount of control over. Right? And once you devise your financial plan, that is your budget, then the next step is that you need to actually apply your budget. And I would say monthly budgets are the most common. Most of us typically budget month by month. It's less work to maintain a monthly budget as it would be a weekly budget. Right? Instead of devising 4 budgets a month, it'd be better to devise just as one budget a month. And monitor that monthly budget. And this is going to involve keeping track of the monies that you spend and how you spend it, and how much you spend. How would we go about doing all that? How would we go about monitoring our spending? Any idea?
Write it down.
Write it down. I'd say keep all of your sales receipts. Document every dime that you spend, how much you spend and where you spend it. Right? Now, I know that you can document your spending using a spreadsheet, using a budget template, akin to the one I've given you in your packet. That would be a good way. I know there are some there are some computer software packages. I know there's some personal accounting programs that you can install on your personal computer that will help you track how you spend your money. And you need to be engaged in this process every day during the month as you spend money, as you write checks, as you pay bills. Well, at the end of 30 or 31 days, at the end of the month, when you're ready to prepare your next month's budget, you're going to evaluate your budget. You're going to review your budget. You're going to compare your budget with the monies that you've actually spent. There will be some instances where you're going to be under budget, wherein you had spent less in a specific category than you budgeted for. There are other times when you may be over budget for legitimate reasons, right? And there may be times when you will be on budget. But the goal is that you maintain a balanced budget. That you don't spend more money than what you take in. Okay, and that's a very important. That's a very, very important idea. Now, if you're discovering that you're over budget overall, yeah, you may be under budget in some spending categories, but you're more over budget. Therefore, overall you're over budget. Then that's going to give you the chance to kind of review how you spend your money and where you need to make adjustments to stay on track. So you will become head over heels in debt. Okay. Okay, do y'all have any questions about this? Is this pretty straightforward? Is this pretty intuitive? Are you okay with everything? Okay. Okay, let me give you an illustration of how we would go about devising a monthly budget as prescribed by this budgetary process. And as I say, this is a sample budget. It may be more extensive as what is being presented up here. It may have too many categories. It may have too few categories relative to the typical person. Okay, this monthly budget is broken down into the major components. The first component, which is the first section of the budget, will be a set of line items related to the earned income that's actually received on a monthly basis. And I would say the primary category for you all would be your take-home pay, your wage income after taxes. Okay. And let's say this happens to be $2,500. And this is on a monthly basis. Right? Now, if you get paid on a weekly basis, the way that you would arrive at the number on a monthly basis is to take your weekly income and multiply it by about 4.5. Some months have 5 weeks, others have 4 weeks, but I would say a conservative estimate of your take-home pay on a monthly basis would be your weekly income times 4.5. Or if you get paid every 2 weeks, it would be your 2 weekly income multiplied by, say, 2 as a benchmark. Then there may be some other sources of income that you will receive if you have to file taxes. It can vary from person to person. Some people are invested in the stock market, and they may receive a source of income through stock dividends, which are never guaranteed. But any other income source that you can identify, make sure it's certain and you're not going to speculate. You don't want to guess. You don't want to guess here. You want this to be as certain as you could make it. Okay. So I think to be conservative, you may just want to go with your take-home pay, and that's it. Okay. Well, the second section it is going to be related to savings and your other financial goals. And the reason I have this below the income is that we need to make sure that we pay ourselves first before we pay anybody else. Okay. Well, I have a couple line items under savings. We have the emergency fund that we definitely need to set aside if you don't have anything else. Right. And here I have $120 appropriated from $2,500 in take home. I believe you indicated about making a down payment on a car in the future. You accommodate that by putting in place this category where you're saving $30 a month. Saving for vacations, 20, savings for investments, which may actually be a certificate of deposit savings account or passbook savings. That will be additional 30. Therefore, your total savings will be 200. Now, I know that's not 10% of 2,500, but it is fairly close. Right? As I say, if you can, 10%. If you can't, just do the best you can. Okay, the third category is going to be the financial obligations that are fixed and that you have no control over. Right? And I see a couple of my friends. Good to see you.
Thank you.
Okay, good to see you. All right. Okay. And these are the financial obligations that reoccur every month. And these are going to be consistent from month to month to month. Now, if you are mortgaging a house or you're renting an apartment, in this case, the appropriation is going to be $550. Now, if there's no mortgage, but it's all rental payments, what's probably going to be reasonable, particularly if you don't drive a car, you ride the bus, is that you don't have any personal property taxes. I think personal property taxes are usually due once a year for most things. If you own a car in Commonwealth, Virginia, you would have to pay personal property on the car. I believe that's an annual tax. You're going to account for that tax on a monthly basis by dividing your annual tax bill by 12, and that will give you the monthly average there. So there's nothing wrong with including monthly averages. And if you are making use of revolving lines of credit, where you have credit card payments that need to be made every month, and if you make the minimum payment, and that's not subject to change, then you would put that minimum payment there on a monthly basis. But I think it's always a good idea to pay more than the minimum payment. Because if you stick with minimum payments, you're likely to have that debt obligation for a very, very long time, which may not be a good thing. Right? Life insurance. Some of you have life insurance premiums that you have to pay. I guess this is once every 6 months, I guess. If it's a 6 month premium that you have to pay, you would divide the 6 months by 6 to get it down on a monthly basis. Health insurance usually is paid every month, right? That premium. Okay. And of course, there may be some other fixed expenses that you'll have to account for that's not really listed here. which would make this category much broader. But in this particular case, we're going to assume this is an exhaustive list of all fixed expenses that reoccur every month, and therefore the total expenses here is going to be $1,210. And then the last category, which can be fairly extensive. And this is something that you really have to think about. It may take you 3 or 4 days, 8 hours a day to do this part, because it can be very involved. You got to really think about it. And these are the financial obligations that you have more control over. And these are going to be the so-called variable expenses. Well, I think that grocery store purchases we make regularly, week by week. We can figure out how much we can anticipate or expect to spend at the grocery store every week, and then multiply that number by about 4.5, and that would give us a good estimate, a good round figure as to how much we're going to be spending at the grocery store on a monthly basis. We have public utilities, and we may want to break this down across many categories. We may have telephone, heat, electricity, water, and all separate bills. You probably want to break those down. And those reoccur to some extent every month, but it can vary from month to month depending on how much we use the phone, how much heat versus electricity that we use. Clothing and apparel. I usually buy about every 6 months or every once a year or something like that. I have to estimate that on a monthly basis. Transportation, that's going to be fairly extensive. How much we spend on gas each week, each month. How much we can anticipate in terms of preventive maintenance on the automobile. I get my oil changed every couple months. I get my air filter changed. I certainly get my car inspected every 6 months. Every year. It used to be every 6 months. Public transportation, everything from airline tickets, average that out on a monthly basis. If we ride the bus system here at Lynchburg, does it cost us anything to ride the bus in Lynchburg? I think for you students, I don't think it costs anything, does it?
Not for students.
Not for students, but for the other citizens, I think they're going to have to pay a bus fee. So you may want to break this down in more detail to get a more precise estimate of how much you're spending on way of transportation each month. Personal health care. I know I get my teeth cleaned twice a year. I have my annual physical. You break that down on a monthly basis. Entertainment, college tuition, gifts and donations. Can you think of anything else that may reoccur every month, that expenses that you have a fair amount of control over?
I know some people tithe to the church.
Yeah, that would be the donations and the gifts. You want to break that down. Church giving versus charitable giving. Giving to the Central Virginia Community College Foundation. That's a very important endeavor, and that should be in our budget, right?
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, charitable giving, church giving, things like that. And then miscellaneous. What would fall under miscellaneous, do you think? Yeah, just about anything else. In fact, I think this category should be should be small. You may want to add a few dollars there to play with. We may be spending a little bit more money each month on gasoline because gasoline prices go up. And the miscellaneous could offset some of that added cost if it were to occur. So, yeah. Well, we're going to add up all the variable expenses in this case, and it's going to be $1,090. And if I add the variable expenses with the fixed expenses along with savings, that grand total is going to match up the income coming in, which is $2,500. Okay. And this is what we need to think long and hard about at the end of each month, as we plan our budget for next month. And we do this 12 times a year. Right. I know you would have to sacrifice time to do this, but it's going to be well worth your effort. Okay, very well worth your effort. Well, in the column beside the budget amount, we have the actual amounts that we tally over the course of a month. Well, assuming that the income that we're bringing in is certain, then the actual amount of income will be what's in our budget. Right? Unless we're paid per hour, and for whatever reason, we're not working the number of hours that we really entitled with, right? Like full time, right? And then the emergency fund. I'm sorry. The savings. I'm assuming here that we are disciplined, that we're going to save what we're saying we're going to save. Right? So these numbers should be consistent. I know there are things that come up where we may not be able to save as planned, but hopefully that won't happen, right? And then these numbers are definitely going to be the same unless something happens. Maybe insurance premiums go up unexpectedly. Our property taxes go up unexpectedly, and in view of variable interest rates on mortgages, sometimes that actual amount may be greater than expected, and things like that. Well, next to this budget column under variable expenses, we track how we're spending our money and how much, and we're able to fill in these cells here, right? Well, at the beginning of the month, we planned to spend no more than $350 on groceries, but it turned out that we actually spent $370. So we're $20 over budget. And that can't happen. Well, we're spending a little bit less than planned in the utility category, as well as the clothing category. A little bit over budget in transportation, a little over budget in healthcare, a little over budget in gifts and donations. Maybe you had a friend get married and you didn't count on it, and you gave, right? Right? But I would say overall, in the variable expense category, we're operating $18 under budget, which is good, right? And in terms of the whole budget, when we include all expenses and savings, it looks like we're operating $18 over budget. And that $18 can be funneled into savings, right? Which can make up for the deficit and savings, because we're not saving 10%, right? Right? Let me ask you a question, and this is a very important question. These numbers that represent the budget, are we obligated to match these numbers exactly in our actual budget? In other words, if we budget $350 to buy groceries, are we obligated to spend $350? No. If we can spend less than $350 and get by, do it. We're not obligated to spend all the money in our budget. Right? But I do think that we have a moral obligation to save. A moral obligation to save. Let me share something with you today that I usually share with my students in economics. And this is kind of a side note. Do you think that we have a personal and social obligation to save? And by the way, savings comes in many shapes, forms, and sizes. We save money as we store some of our income in a passbook savings account. If we put money in a certificate of deposit, we are engaged in savings. If we invest in corporate bonds, if we invest in government bonds, if we invest in municipal bonds, we are engaged in savings. If we invest money in the stock market, those financial investments will be included in savings. So any way that we accumulate financial wealth is savings. Now, having said that, do you think that we have both a personal and a social obligation to save? Do you think we have a personal obligation to save? What do you think?
Well, that's the question. It's for your own survival.
Okay.
Just if you take it to the most basic root.
Yeah.
For your own survival.
Yeah.
From a societal standpoint, it's part of the social contract in a way.
Well, do you think there is a material incentive to save, or do you think there's a moral incentive to save? What type of incentive do we have to save? Is it more a material incentive, or do you think it's more of a moral incentive to save? Well, as I said, I think personal savings is both material and moral incentive, because in my view, we all work hard for our money, and we need to pay ourselves first. Morally, ethically, honestly, we need to pay ourselves first before we pay anybody else. Well, I like to think of having savings to support myself in the future, wherein I don't have to rely on taxpayers to pay my bill. Right? I know that we have emergencies. And because emergencies are inevitable, and sometimes these emergencies are very, very significant, wherein we're going to have to pay a lot of money, it's going to be important for us to have personal savings. Can you reflect on that?
Well, actually, I have a question. When you say pay yourself, are you putting that money in your emergency funding? Or
Could
your
be,
savings?
could be any of those.
Okay.
It could be emergency fund, it could be anything. But the fact of the matter is, you need to save money because you need to reward yourself for your hard work. Right? Right. So I think we have a personal obligation to save. Do you think we have a social obligation to save? Do you think that we owe it to society to save? Yes or no? Yes or no? What do you think?
I see it.
Do we owe it to society, not only to ourselves, but to society? to save? Can you elaborate on that?
On the quick, yes. Yeah, like I said before, it's a situation where you can be self-sustaining and productive as a citizen to your own nation. And then if you want an example on the macro sense of when we saved, when we had an obligation to each other, the war bond effort in World War II. We lent our own government money to fight a war on our behalf, to which the government then gave us interest back on our own money at a future time.
So what you're saying, if individuals like you and I and all the rest, if we failed to save money, we wouldn't have been able to do all that, right?
I don't see.
As you suggested, right?
There could have been other ways of doing it, but that was certainly a...
Well, through taxation, you could do it.
Right.
Yeah, through taxation.
So. But just as two examples.
Now, in lieu of the fact that savings comes in many shapes, forms, and sizes, including investment in the stock market, investment in the bond market, we wouldn't have many things that we enjoy right now had not been for the fact that people save their money. How many of you own an iPad or an iPod or an Android device or any wireless device? Well, what kind of device do you own?
iPhone.
Huh?
iPhone.
iPhone. Is that an Apple product?
Yes.
Did you know that that product may not have come to fruition had it been for the fact that people save their money? That financial investors put their money in Apple? I think of these personal computers that we have. I don't think those products would have been conceived, and those products would not have been introduced to the marketplace if it weren't for the fact that some people save their money. In fact, I would go in far as to say that CVCC may not exist today if it weren't for the fact that people save their money. Our living standards would not be as high as it is today if it weren't for the fact that people save their money. You may say, well, Ernie, what supports the economy more, the monies that people spend or the monies that people save? I say they're both very, very important. The demand side of the economy is very important, and the supply side of the economy is very important, and saving supports the supply side. So you need to think about that when you get your paycheck, and you make the conscious decision that I have a moral, personal, and social obligation to save at least 10% of my money. Not only is it going to help me, but it's going to help others too. Am I on target as I make that statement or not? Am I on target? Yeah, I think I'm pretty much on target. And that's a message that I articulate every semester when it comes to savings. which will support many, many different types of investments, either made by companies or by government. In fact, savings is what makes the economy grow. Savings is what brings about job opportunity. Some people wouldn't have jobs if it weren't for the fact that people save money. So we need to think about that. Think before you spend. If you see something neat and you want to, and your instinct is to buy it, don't be hasty. Don't be quick to spend the money. Think about what you buy. Walk away if you have to. And if it's really that urgent, you will eventually make the purchase a few days later. A lot of times, I see something on impulse, the thing would be neat, want to have, I'll walk away. 3 or 4 hours later, I never think about it again. And how much money I save by not just wasting it on things that I probably won't even use anymore. Okay, y'all have any questions, any comments, any other insights? It sure is good to see you all this afternoon. Has this been a good presentation? Has this been inspiring or not? Has it, Connie? Has it been inspiring?
It has been.
It has been inspiring. Well, good.
Makes me think twice about buying things.
Yeah, well, good. Because I think this is a blessing that all of us can use. In fact, I need this lesson probably more than you all need the lesson. I always have to remind myself, this is what I need to do. You should make this top priority. Because this will make your life a lot easier. Yeah. All right, well, thank you so much for everything. Thank you for coming. And by the way, I do teach a personal finance course. It's going to be every semester, I think. It's going to be online. It's a very, very good course. If you need another course to feel elective, the Finance 107 would be good to take because you're going to hear more about this. You're going to hear more about budgeting, using credit, how to invest your money, what to consider when you buy life insurance, what to consider when you buy health insurance, what to consider when you buy property liability insurance. There's a lot of good information that's going to be very practical that you can gain by taking that course. And if you have any other questions, please stop by my office. I'm in 2310 in Amherst Hall. And those of you who came in late, my name is Ernie Wade, and I'm always good to see you.
Thank you.